This is going to be called Back to Reality, the Future of Sports Presentation Studios. We're going to look at some recent projects, we're going to share some best practice, and we're going to discuss some ongoing pain points. Joining me to do that are Ben Wickham, Sky Sports Director of Creative Output, Alex Dinnin, Warner Brothers Discovery Sports Europe's Director of Graphics and Innovation, and John Murphy, BBC Sport Creative Director, Motion. Welcome to you all. We're going to go through a project for each of our speakers, and then we're going to come together and discuss some other topics. Ben, I'd like to come to you first, if you don't mind. While we talk, we're going to show some stuff on the screen, so if we can play that video while we're talking. Sky Sports recently inaugurated a new studio, started off with Monday Night Football, also the US Open, and it's being used for other things as well. When that comes on screen, this is the build. I wonder if you could talk us through the creative background to this project, please, to start with.
Sure. Okay. So, yeah, I put the build video in there because when I first saw the title of this, and we were talking about mixed reality, I was a bit like, well, that's a very hard set. That's very much not mixed.
Actual reality.
So thank you for inviting me for that. The creative proposition is an interesting one. We didn't really have a content proposition to go after. We kind of looked at our studios. And I think every one of us would probably say on the stage that the way presentation is evolving, the way data is evolving, the way AR, VR, all these kind of things. And I think we looked at our portfolio of studios and said it's working for us, but actually we need to look for the future. And at the same time, we had an opportunity with a large studio space kind of came up. So we deliberately built what I would call a canvas for storytelling, as opposed to anything specifically designed around one kind of content proposition. And what we wanted to do with that, I really wanted to create a very kind of immersive feeling environment. We very much leaned into this kind of like an entertainment feel, but I think also like stadium design and that kind of experiential thing. So it's very deliberately 360 degrees. It's very deliberately, it brings the viewer in. The reason why we put an LED floor down was to kind of give you that kind of plane of reference that comes out of the screen to you. It has what we call the fourth wall, where you can kind of, as the camera pans around, it kind of seamlessly stitches this kind of real environment into a virtual environment. So at no point does the viewer ever feel like they're coming out of that studio. They're not behind the camera. They are very much inside it. And as you can see there's a kind of canopy on top. So the whole thing feels like you're in a space and experiencing the space, and therefore engaged and connected with the presenters and the pundits. The reason why we went with the hard set is because or LED effectively. We wanted it to be incredibly flexible. We wanted it to be something that could be used by all the different sports, but we wanted it to feel very uniquely Sky Sports. So whenever you turn this on, it looks like the Sky Sports studio, but it allows, as you can see here, it allows the brand design to be the thing that actually kind of carries through the titles, the graphics, the house style feels part of that studio. And everything that we do in there feels different, but it still feels uniquely Sky Sports. Yep. So there was a very kind of definite feeling that we wanted to create that canvas and build in the tech as well to make sure that we had it future-proofed.
Thank you. What about sort of the operational challenges and the technology choices? Give us an insight into those elements of this set and studio.
Operational challenges. Well, so technology. Let's go technology first.
Okay.
So we actually I can see we've got two of our partners in here. We worked with White Light on the whole thing, and we were very definite. Again, because we didn't have a content proposition, it was about making sure that this was going to see something that lived into the future. So we wanted to make sure that we had, like for example, the LED in the floor, and they run at a very high refresh rate. So we know we can do things. We can do multi-camera virtual shoots. We made sure that all the kind of lighting grid was sustainable, all the lights are movable, what we call our lightsabers, because that's the sort of thing Sky does, we make names for that sort of thing. We make sure that they're all running using a thing called a hypnotizer, so they run video through them, so they can do, there's lots of things that we can do which we don't really know the future for, if that makes sense. We've made sure that we have got the highest spec we could afford, and the highest spec we could put in to make sure that works into the future. The operational challenges around that is it makes it all very complicated. It's all very cutting edge. It's all very bleeding edge. There's lots of, we were working with all our different partners. We made sure that what we were doing was stuff that we didn't know how to use yet. So we had to learn that. And we are still, I think it's fair to say, learning that. And it's a complex environment that makes making content complex. But it's a fun challenge.
Absolutely. And it's continuing to evolve, isn't it? Which is really important.
Yeah.
Before I move on to Alex, have you learnt anything from this project that you can share?
LED floors are really hard. I mean, genuinely.
good to know.
The team at Whitelight kept coming back to me and saying, "You sure you want to put that floor in? You sure you want to put that floor in?" Because we had loads of really boring traditional problems with like lighting, because once you start segmenting camera shutters and having different frames going through, you throw away a load of light. When you put an LED floor down, it looks terrible unless you put a black covering on it. You put a black covering on it, it's even darker than it was in the first place. So we had to do a lot of balancing of deciding what we wanted. There's all sorts of other stuff as well, but yeah, that was a pain point.
Excellent. We may come back to that. Thank you very much, Alex. Before we talk about your two studios, actually, we're going to see a very quick video, if we can, please. There we go.
This is the Eurosport Cube.
Ready, steady, go!
Novak, great to see you. Congratulations.
I'm delighted to be joined by Owen Hargreaves and Paul Scholes.
Arina Sabalenka is a very aggressive returner of serve.
You can see the peloton just coming up next to me here, and we're going to look at the riders in the red.
The last 8 games was against the 4th tier side in the Copa del Rey.
Do so, but we've got the rolling road, we've got the generator going, we've got the wind piling through.
There has never been more than a minute between Jonas Vingegaard and
Peter Crouch is still with me, and I'm delighted to say any Olympic. He has increased the speed on his ground strokes.
Ideal strike zone is at hip level.
we moved into our very own team bus. Take it away, Robbie.
Okay, guys, I want to say again,
This was part because defensive, they were just so different.
all right, very good. Looking forward to all of those.
When you want to have very tight-fitting lycra clothing,
That's incredible, isn't it? Considering how Khachanov is serving.
Manchester United, who are in Copenhagen.
Looking forward to seeing you soon from all of us here. It's goodbye.
Thank you. So, Alex, tell us what we've just seen and creatively what you were trying to achieve.
It's been a busy year. We've had been running the Cube studio. For the first time, we did all 3 Grand Tours in the cycling. We did 2 Grand Slams, and then at the beginning of the year, the worst kept secret about the JV with BT Sport. I was told that we needed to build 2 new studios at Stockley Park. By beginning of September, we had to have TNT Sports, as it's now known, running out of Stockley Park in our studio. So it was a bit of a crazy time.
What we saw there, so we've seen the new, beg your pardon, I use the microphone. We saw the TNT element of it.
Yep.
What look are you trying to achieve there? What creative? What's the background to that?
So obviously, when we changed brands, we went to TNT. Changed to TNT. Dixon Baxi came up with a great philosophy, and it was to be closer to the fans. And my whole thought about building the TNT studios was, as a big football supporter, it was I wanted to take. If you couldn't be at the ground, where would be the best seat in the house? And it would be the director's box. It'd be sitting overlooking the stadium, and so that was the plan. But very much like yourself, TNT Sports is not only football, it's rugby, it's cricket, so it had to be a multiple studio. And as I say, we were building 2 studios, and it seemed daft to build 2 different studios. So we've got 2 green screen studios, but to build 2 different looks. So we kind of built an area in a stadium where you could sit, you could be looking out, but there'd be an east wing, a west wing. There's a south wall we haven't really touched on. So we're all these little different areas that we can sort of then move around to.
You mentioned, so Ben's set, it's your own set, you own it, right?
Yeah,
It's entirely your set, is mainly real. It's all there.
Yeah.
Yours is green. Why?
Completely green.
Why?
It was a big decision. The original plan was the larger studio, Studio C, was going to be an LED environment. Studio B was going to be green screen. We had a deal with White Light. We'd all agreed. We'd almost sent the purchase order off. It was obviously very expensive, but we sat down and we thought about it. And we looked at it, and sustainability. Obviously, what was happening between BT Sport, Warner Brothers Discovery. Obviously, we were letting people go. People were having to reapply for their jobs. It seemed, a bit vulgar to be spending an awful lot of money on an LED wall. When we sat down and we said, can we do what we can do in a green screen that we can do, we can't do in LED. And as well as the complications that LED walls bring, it's just seemed the sensible option. So we withdrew our purchase order with our friends at White Light and went both with both studios green.
Thank you. Any other technical elements of that are worth sharing about what's in there, what you chose to use, what you didn't choose to use, for example?
No, not really. Because it was such a rush job. It was
in the nicest possible professional sense, Alex. Of course.
Okay, of course. But it was, we had sort of like 6-7 months to come up with a design, and work out how we were going to do it. Or let's say 5 months before we let directors loose on it, and that's the worst thing you can do. So it was, right, let's just get it, as quickly as possible. Work out how it's going to work, and then once we've got it up and running, then we start progressing.
Thank you. And before we move on to Murph, any lessons you've learned from that project?
I've learned an awful lot of lessons. Green screen isn't as easy as it looks.
And again, we'll come back to that. Thank you very much. John, before we talk about BBC Match of the Day, let's see a 30-second snippet of what we're going to talk about. Excellent. So that's not just Match of the Day. That's an important thing to point out before Murph picks me up on that. What have we just seen? Tell us about creatively what's behind it.
Yeah, so that's so effectively that's our new refresh for this season. We obviously it's not a behind the scenes video. We've done a lot of those from that same space, which is the Dock 10 Studios in Media City. We've been in there since with the virtual studio since 2019, I think. And that's our latest kind of design that we did for the new season. The reason for it was primarily that we've got four football programs over a weekend, different editorial requirements, and we just wanted to give each one their own, flavour. And that was the idea behind the design of it. It's green screen, obviously, fully green screen. 5 cameras. Obviously that is Dock 10. We've also got our other green screen studio over the road in our own building, which we did things like the Winter Olympics from, and we do some other weekly output from. But yeah, that's primarily football, and that's what we did this year.
So Sky Sports viewers are in a stadium. Warner Brothers Discovery viewers are in a director's box, essentially. Where are BBC viewers?
Right. I don't think we know, actually, to be honest. So Match of the Day is very much about the, where do you put Match of the Day? There's not really anywhere you put it as such. We've done the stadium, we've done that. What we did this time was kind of said, well, let's give it a generic outside place, not saying anywhere where it is. There's a little... People might not know this if you're aware of the Newsnight programme on BBC. The actual backdrop of the match of the day is a very futuristic derivative from that back in probably about 8-10 years ago. It's actually originates from that image. Wow. We kind of stole it and did some extra work. And
this is cutting edge stuff, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. we like to regenerate things. You see, that's what it is.
It's sustainable. Yeah, it's sustainable.
Yeah,
it's not a problem.
Absolutely.
We embrace it.
I'm giving all the tricks away.
I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you just said that.
We did a lot of work on it, but it's effectively we want Match of the Day, just kind of generic space. Obviously, as Ben was saying before, different editorial requirements. Match of the Day. At the end of the day, we kind of come on air. You do a match edit, 2-3 minutes analysis. Match edit, 2-3 minutes analysis. There's not really the time to be doing stand up. Doing all of that. We just don't. That's just not part of the editorial. So that's the reason for that. Football Focus is on there. You saw which is very much more. It's a magazine show. And if it was feeling to us that it was Football Focus was very much a kind of program which was sitting in a Match of the Day studio, and it's not that. So we gave that a different flavour in terms of we gave it 3-4 different presenting positions. That has actually got a backdrop of Manchester.
Well done.
So yeah, just so you're aware of that, and that is new backdrop. It's not old.
Not recycled.
And then dressing rooms, bit of fun, bit more fun, bit more kind of relaxed. Gives them a chance to kind of talk about different things. And that's it's so far gone well. And as I say, it's our next. We're obviously now looking at. It's funny the way that things change between the two. We're looking at LED as well, possibly.
We'll come back to that. Don't spoil it. Just before we do that, and I've asked the other two guys, any lessons you've learned from this specific project?
I mean, the thing is that I would say the lessons from this is as I say, we've been in there now for quite a long time doing the green screen. So the lessons we've learned are very much probably back mistakes that we have made over that period. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we made initially was that when we were kind of the gaming engine came into it, we were new to that kind of virtual studio. It was like everyone's, let's make everything big. Well, actually, that's not actually the way it should be thought about, because if you're doing a virtual environment where you've got a skyline, you've got a backdrop and all of that, then obviously that gives you that kind of openness to it. If you're doing a virtual studio, which is effectively still doing a studio, 4 walls, why do you want it big? Why do you want it massive? It's not. You still want that kind of closeness of the talent and all that. So I think things like that, and obviously just the usual stuff around green screen. Really, just it's, as Alex says, it has its merits, but it's still not easy to deal with.
Okay, so let's not beat around the bush. Alex, why is green screen? We've done it for a while now. This is not new. Why is it still such a pain in the arse?
I wish someone would tell me. We had a big discussion about this. It's been going around. It's been around for years.
Yeah, it's not new.
It's not new. We took all the advice from everyone who could give it to us. You need to be 2 meters away from the green screen. You need to light it properly. Get a really good lighting director. You need to be keyed properly. You need to get the top man in the business to come down and do your keying for you. So why isn't it working? And I genuinely don't know. I sit and I look at our output and I go, that keying's awful. And I'm probably really, really nitpicking, and probably a lot of people don't notice it, but I do, and it drives me up the wall. And coming from an LED background, you don't have that issue at all.
I mean, no, you don't.
But you get reflections. Surely, LED reflections is a pain point.
I mean, so the creative design we've got isn't it's not a kind of mixed at the moment. We have talking of future-proof, we have the tech that we can mix. You can create mixed reality, but ours is an LED floor, right? We're not expecting a reflection to be there, and we also have a shiny floor, so we have a reflection there. So I think we made choices that we were like, we want this to feel like an actual a room. We want it to feel like a space that you're in. So we just calmly sort of just walked around those problems really.
Can I just say green reflections aren't great either?
No. Okay. Murph, were you going to add anything else about the pain of green screen? Because I felt you were going to jump in then.
I mean, as I say, we've been working for quite a few years now. Our pain is probably not yours because it's quite new for you. So I think I've been through probably the lots of the pain that we had initially. The thing is, for us when we first did it, was the talent. Really kind of concerned about what the talent were going to feel like sitting in a green box. And you know what? A lot of that comes down to the fact that once they get in there and they see the output, kind of drives how they feel about it.
And I would say as well, my background is I've worked at ITN for many years, which is also green screen. And I think we were in a similar position where you fix all the problems, right? It's keys all right mostly. I think it's horses for courses. If you're sitting down and the stuff that you do where you're not moving around, it's actually quite simple.
Yeah.
As soon as you start standing up, it's
singles,
absolute pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people with sort of fluffy hair.
Yeah, and we sort of knew that we wanted to stand up.
I'm trying to oust them as quickly as possible.
The wardrobe as well. That's the other consideration.
None of this is very inclusive. You can't get rid of people with fluffy hair. That's not how we roll. Here's a really interesting question. You've all spent some money, whether you spent a lot of money or not a lot of money, but how do you ensure efficient usage of this space after you've spent that money?
I'd love to know. You have to get really good processes, I think, is the best way to look at it. There is, I mean, we are very early in our journey. I think, I don't think it's any secret to say that I think we are kind of looking into how we can kind of make more efficient use of that in terms of the automation that might be driving some of the back end of it and that kind of thing. I think there's a piece of work to be done in terms of design around how we can kind of create designs without having to fire them up in the studio, frankly, like, you know, some sort of like virtual production, which we're kind of working on. But where we're finding at the moment is like it's such a complex environment. We have to have really good steering groups and panels. You know, we have to have the tech team work with the creative team, work with the directors, work with the production, and all talk together so that someone doesn't go off going, this is an amazing idea, I'm going to do it, and then you turn around, you can't do that because the tech doesn't do it. Like, you have to really, really work as a team to make sure that you all understand the complexity, because no one team understands it anymore. So once you do that, it's smooth, but getting that steering group is quite difficult.
Yeah. Utilisation, guys, that's less of an issue presumably, Murph, for you, because you designed it specifically for those jobs, but you've still got to make use of your spend, surely. So
yeah, I mean, obviously that was talking about the football studio in Dock 10. We've got our own green space, sort of an 84 metre square box, and as a business case, that's been our best usage, because, you know, we never actually built that thinking that we were going to put a major event in there, but then we went and did the Winter Olympics in there because it was so close on the back of Tokyo, and that went really well. But the best thing about that space now is once we made that investment, we're doing a multitude of sports from there now. We're doing, you know, the sport news team do kind of a daily program on iPlayer. We do lots of Olympic sports like athletics, everything else, and obviously simply a lot of it is just changing the backdrop image of where it is, and because we've got a more generic studio in there. But that now is a place where, in the past, before we had it, it was always a kind of like, right, we're doing a small budget kind of sports production. How are we going to do it? Where are we going to do it from? Now the directors are all really happy. Let's go. You know, we're in there. We can give us our own backdrop, put our own branding in, change it all quite quickly. It's all templated, and that has been the best business case for us.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, let's look forward for the last third of this discussion. Alex, how do we future-proof these studios? How do we make sure that they're still going to be either relevant or working in beyond next year and the year beyond, and even beyond that?
I think this carries on to the back of what Murph was just saying. The beauty of it is you don't have to rip out a studio and start again. You know, because it's certainly it's green screen. You know, you can just come up with a new idea. You go into Unreal, you build a new studio, and away you go. I think that is so much more. You know, we're having discussions at the moment. We've already run out of studio space. We're talking about building a hard set, and I'm trying to argue the fact that building a hard set isn't practical. Just for where we are, because we need to chop and change from so many different sports. We're going from cricket to rugby to football to tennis, whatever. That actually you can have 5 different sets. Literally just the push of the button. And we're trying to work out now how it can be. We can reduce staff and reduce how complex it is by working out a system that you can go. So we know we've got tennis coming in. Someone comes in, just presses the tennis button, and the whole studio comes to life as a tennis set.
Okay, so who do you consider when you're making these decisions, whether it's green, whether it's physical? Do you consider the viewer? Do you consider Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville, just to pick 2 pundits out of the air, or Gary Lineker? Do you consider the sustainability angle? Do you consider the production team? Who do you think about when you're making these decisions?
I think when we first went to green screen, Gary would say we definitely didn't consider him. No, I think for me, listen, it's different, isn't it? I think for me, it's still the viewer, isn't it? I mean, we still want to give an experience. We're trying to kind of give an experience to the viewer. Again, just a small thing. I think sometimes in the industry, we kind of, and it's our jobs too, by the way, is that we get really engrossed with the kind of the detail and what it looks like, and it as we should do, and really going into it. And then actually the irony is sometimes that the viewer is not concentrating on those things as much. They're looking at what the content is, which is rightly so. I mean, for one quick example, Tokyo Studio we did if I look back on that now and I look at the sky drop, the backdrop and everything, it was kind of like I look back and go, oh, should have done that better, shouldn't I? But when we went on air with Tokyo, all the social media messages were coming and going, we didn't think the BBC were in Tokyo. What are the BBC doing in Tokyo? And so what I'm saying is, we were there thinking, it doesn't look real. But that's not always the way with the viewer. So, yeah, I would say the viewer.
Ben, you got the same answer?
Gary Neville.
Gary Neville.
I think it's all of the above, which is a really boring political answer. But I think it's the viewer, right? But I think it's that we were actually. It's funny you say about Nev and Cara. Like that was part of the kind of impetus of like looking at what we could possibly do with our pundits and ex-athletes and presenters. And one of the reasons why we came to the creative decisions we came to was because I was very keen that like I wanted the production teams and the pundits and the whole the production in a wider sense to understand what they were getting without me having to explain it to them, without having to kind of muck around too much. So. We didn't really have to explain to anyone what like we have counters on the floor. You can see them, right? You know what that is and you use it. You don't have to kind of think, well, if you imagine this is here, that's there's none of that kind of thing going on. And that's when you've got your team, that's easier. But what's great is when you look at like when Gary Neal came in from Brentford, and he you get someone who's never worked in that studio before. They put up some training footage. They're explaining it. They're showing you the formation. Like it's just that was a great bit of content that no one had to say, right, what you're going to be doing is this, and you just have to think about this, and don't worry about, the way our studio is set up is the directors know the shots they can get, the pundits and the presenters know what they're looking at, and the creative team can effectively just do their thing because it doesn't really make a lot of difference to the production process. So you're trying to make sure the viewer is comfortable and engaged, and I think sometimes how you do that is to make sure that the team working on it are comfortable and engaged.
Thank you very much. Alex, are there other ways we could display data and graphics in these studios? I'm not thinking Tom Cruise Minority Report before you bring it up as a shit example.
Hoping you wouldn't throw this one at me.
There must be different ways of showing data
Absolutely.
and information.
Yeah. We've been working certainly for the tennis, and we're looking at for the cricket about AR graphics, about integrating Hawkeye data into the studio. And so we've been doing it with tennis. We're looking at cricket. There's got to be maybe, I don't know. We're thinking about it. It's a really hard one to answer.
Shall I save you? Shall I ask somebody else?
Yeah. Move on.
Murph, how can we display data and graphics better inside these studios? Save Alex.
I'm probably going to go the opposite a little bit on this. Is that I think AR. We've done all as we do AR data imagery. Bringing it into the studio, having it immersive with the talent. I think sometimes we can maybe start to think get too clever with it, if I'm being honest. I think, at the end of the day, if you're watching a football programme and if you wanted to see a Premier League table, what do they want to see? They want to see a Premier League table, and the most important thing of that is what is on that Premier League. If we start being too clever with camera angles and everything else and trying to display data just because it might look good to the studio, it's not the most important thing, and I think sometimes we just have to remember that. I think even we've been going back a few years, and you had the whole kind of swiping left, swiping right graphics.
In the TV's just swiping left.
Well, yeah. That's true. Yeah. But no, listen, and some of it has absolutely editorial merit, like kind of triggering stuff from an iPad and all that. Absolutely. No doubt about it, but it depends what it is, and I think when you get to kind of, just what the viewer needs to see, we just need to probably just take a step back and think more.
I think you're right. That brings it back to the viewer, doesn't it? This is why you make it for the viewer. If you put a league table or a tennis ladder or something up in AR. It's so overcomplicated. Just put it full screen, for God's sake. This is directors getting overexcited about virtual studios.
Yeah, I think we've probably all been in that experience as well. When you go to a trade show, and there's so many people solving problems that you don't have. Yeah. With sort of ways of displaying things. Yeah. It's like, I need my iPad to work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking of problems solving problems we don't have, virtual production in the tradition, in the new sense of that, not virtual sets, virtual studio. Virtual production, Mandalorian style. Is that an option? Is that something we can look at, Alex? You were nodding your head there.
Well, we do it. It's a Cube.
Yeah.
Our Cube studio. We've been doing virtual production for 3-4 years now. So
there you go. This probably didn't know. Right, we've got 1 minute, 41 seconds. I'm going to quick fire last round to wrap things up. If you could solve just one studio presentation problem with a click of your fingers, what would it be? Murph, you're first.
Yeah, sorry, just to say not, but it is one problem. To be honest, can we just make the whole process simpler?
The whole process?
Yeah, I mean, we're all talking about it, you know, love doing it creatively, fantastic. Just the kind of the process, the workflows, the technology behind it, you know, it still is hard work. It's hard work. And, you know, we do it for the valid reason, but it'd be good if, okay, don't put it this way, but yeah, it'd be great if we could just get a button to switch and it just kind of, you know, and it all appeared. And that would be fantastic.
John wants an easy life, but also wants a miracle. Alex, if you could solve one problem, not all the problems, what would it be?
I'm desperate to say green screen, but I'm not going to say green screen. I'm going to say talent, finding people to run it, control it, finding actual staff. It's currently a bit like finding unicorns.
Excellent. Ben, to take us home, if you could solve one studio presentation problem with a click of your fingers, what would it be?
I think I would, probably a little bit, like was we said before, I think I want everything to play nicely together. I think it's very difficult to, when you start creating different complicated systems, to make that work together, and you know, all these different things, you want it just to happen. I mean, most of you press a button and it works, but I think it's about suppliers working together to make sure that all the various different things we have to plug in a really modern, complex environment will actually work and play nicely and work well.
Brilliant. Ben, Alex, John, thank you for your time. Please join me in thanking the panel for their discussion.